German Shepherd was hanging by one paw from a skyscraper. What baby did next left everyone in tears. The story you're about to listen will break your heart and then put it back together again. What happens when a 5-year-old girl notices something no one else can see? The answer will leave you in tears. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and let us know where you're watching from. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window of the Parkers' 15th floor apartment, casting golden squares across the breakfast table. Emma Parker, a tired emergency room nurse just off the night shift, poured herself a third cup of coffee while her husband Tom flipped through the newspaper before heading to his construction job. Their daughter Mia, a tiny wisp of a girl with curious eyes that seemed to take in more than most 5-year-olds, suddenly stopped eating her cereal. "Mommy," Mia said, her spoon frozen halfway to her mouth, "there's a dog about to fall." Emma rubbed her eyes, the exhaustion of a 12-hour shift weighing on her. "What was that, sweetheart?" "A dog. He's hanging from that tall building." Mia pointed out the window toward the gleaming skyscraper that stood across from their apartment complex. Tom looked up from his newspaper, exchanging a knowing glance with his wife. This wasn't the first time Mia had seen something unusual. Last month, she insisted there was a bird with a broken wing on their balcony before anyone had spotted it. The month before, she'd known about Mrs. Wilson's fall in apartment 12B before the ambulance arrived. "Honey, that building is over 500 feet tall. You can't possibly see a dog from here," Emma said gently. But Mia pushed away her cereal bowl and pressed her face against the window. "He's there, Mommy. He's scared. He's hanging by his paw on the window cleaning thing. The 30th floor. Please look." Tom sighed and folded his newspaper. "I'll humor her," he whispered to Emma, who shrugged. He joined Mia at the window. "Show me where you think you see this dog, princess." Mia's finger jabbed at the glass. "There, count up. 1, 2, 3, 30 floors. See the blue platform thing? He's hanging from it." Tom squinted, straining his eyes. There was indeed a window washing platform visible at approximately the 30th floor of the Horizon Tower, but it was too far away to make out any details. "I don't see any dog, Mia," he said, though his voice carried a hint of uncertainty. Emma joined them, the steaming coffee mug warm in her hands. "Tom, use the binoculars, the ones we got for bird watching." Tom retrieved the binoculars from the hall closet. As he focused on the distant building, his casual smile faded. "Holy..." He stopped himself, remembering Mia was present. "Emma, take a look at this." Emma took the binoculars, peering through them with tired eyes that suddenly widened in shock. There, on the 30th floor of the Horizon Tower, a large German Shepherd was indeed hanging by one paw from the edge of a window washing platform, its body dangling precariously over the street below. "Oh my God," she gasped. "Mia's right. There's actually a dog out there. How did you see that without binoculars, Mia?" But Mia wasn't listening. She was pulling on her shoes with determined little fingers. "We have to help him, Mommy. He's calling for help." Emma grabbed the phone, dialing emergency services, while Tom knelt beside Mia. "How did you know, Princess? That building is so far away." Mia looked at her father with eyes that seemed older than her years. "I just heard him calling. He's very scared, Daddy." Within 20 minutes, Emma, Tom, and Mia had rushed downstairs and across the street to the base of the Horizon Tower. A crowd was already gathering, necks craned upward. Someone had called the local news station, and a van with the Channel 7 logo pulled up as the Parkers arrived. "That's my dog," a voice called out. An elderly man in a hospital gown and robe sat in a wheelchair near the building entrance, an attendant standing nervously behind him. "That's my Max. He must have followed me when they took me to the hospital yesterday." Emma approached the man. "Sir, you shouldn't be out of the hospital." The old man's eyes were fixed on the tiny shape high above. "I had to come when they told me. He's all I have left." His hands trembled in his lap. "My name's Walter Hayes. I live on the 31st floor. Max must have gotten out somehow." More emergency vehicles arrived. Fire trucks, police cars, and an animal rescue unit. The crowd had grown to nearly 100 people, all watching in helpless horror as the German Shepherd struggled to maintain its grip on the platform. Fire Chief Davis, a stern-looking woman with salt and pepper hair pulled into a tight bun, assessed the situation through high-powered binoculars. "That platform is damaged. Looks like it broke loose from one of its cables. We can't send anyone up there. It won't hold the weight of an adult." Officer Ben Rodriguez, a compassionate young cop who had just joined the force, shook his head. We can't just let the dog fall. We might have to, said Howard Jenkins, the building manager, a nervous man in an ill-fitting suit who kept dabbing at his forehead with a handkerchief. If that platform gives way, it could cause damage to the building or injure someone below. We should clear the area and wait for nature to take its course. You mean wait for the dog to fall to its death? Tom asked, his voice rising. The building manager flinched. I'm just thinking of liability, sir. A murmur of disapproval rippled through the crowd. The helicopter can't get close enough, Chief Davis announced after a radio consultation. The wind between these buildings creates a tunnel effect. It's too dangerous. Walter Hayes sobbed quietly in his wheelchair. Please, please save him. Mia tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, Max is talking to me. Emma knelt beside her daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face. What do you mean, sweetie? The dog. His name isn't Max, it's Thunder. The old man forgot because he's been sick. Mia's voice was matter-of-fact. He says he was trying to find help for his person when he got stuck. Walter Hayes looked up at Mia's words. Thunder? That was what my late wife called him. I started calling him Max after she passed. How could this child know that? Emma and Tom exchanged worried glances. Mia had done this before, known things she couldn't possibly know. Thunder needs help, Mommy. He's slipping, Mia said urgently, her eyes fixed on the distant platform. As if on cue, the crowd gasped as the German Shepherd's paw slipped slightly, causing the animal to scramble for a better grip. The platform tilted precariously. We're running out of options, Chief Davis admitted. The structural engineers say we can't secure the platform from above or below without risking it breaking away completely. What about from inside the building? Tom asked. The nearest windows don't open wide enough for an adult to reach out, explained the building manager. They're safety windows. They only open about 8 inches. Mia tugged on Tom's hand. Daddy, I can help him. Thunder's showing me how. Tom crouched down to his daughter's eye level. Mia, honey, there's nothing you can do. The grown-ups are trying to figure this out. But he's telling me, Mia insisted, her voice rising. He knows a secret way. There's a special door behind the big plant on the 30th floor. It leads to where the window washers keep their things. The building manager's eyebrows shot up. What? How could she know about the maintenance access? That's not on any public building plans. Tom looked at the manager. Is she right? Is there such a door? Howard Jenkins nodded slowly. Yes, but it's kept locked. Only maintenance personnel have the key. Can we use that to reach the dog? Officer Rodriguez asked. Theoretically, yes, but the access hatch to the platform is small. It was designed for equipment, not people, Jenkins replied. How small? Emma asked. About 2 feet by 2 feet, Jenkins said. An adult couldn't fit through it. Everyone fell silent as the implication hung in the air. No, Emma said firmly, pulling Mia closer to her side. Absolutely not. Of course not, Chief Davis agreed. We would never send a child into a dangerous situation like that. The crowd's attention was drawn upward again as the platform shifted, dropping several inches. Thunder yelped, his paw barely maintaining its grip. The crowd gasped collectively. Please, there must be something we can do, Walter pleaded, tears streaming down his weathered face. The news crew had set up their equipment and was broadcasting live. We're here at the base of Horizon Tower, the reporter announced into her microphone, where a German Shepherd is fighting for his life 30 stories above us. Emergency services have arrived, but at this time, no rescue plan has been established. Mia's eyes never left the tiny figure suspended in the air. He's getting tired, Mommy, she whispered. His paw hurts. How do you know these things, Mia? Emma asked, a mixture of wonder and fear in her voice. Mia shrugged. I just do. Sometimes animals talk to me, not with words but with pictures and feelings. Grandma said I have her gift. Emma's mother had often claimed a special connection with animals, a claim Emma had dismissed as fantasy. Now, she wasn't so sure. A second cable on the platform snapped with a sharp crack that could be heard even from the ground. The platform lurched dramatically to one side, now hanging by only one cable. Thunder scrambled desperately, somehow maintaining his grip, but it was clear he wouldn't last much longer. We have minutes, not hours, Chief Davis said grimly. Mia suddenly pulled away from her mother's grasp. I have to help him now. Before anyone could react, she darted toward the building entrance. Mia, Emma called, rushing after her daughter. Tom was a step behind, but Mia was quick and small. She slipped through the revolving door and into the lobby. "Stop that child," the building manager called to the security guard, but the guard was too slow. Mia reached the elevator bank and pressed the up button repeatedly. People in the lobby stared at the little girl in confusion. Emma and Tom burst through the doors just as an elevator arrived and its doors slid open. "Mia Parker, you stop right this instant," Emma shouted. But Mia had already darted into the elevator. A businessman stepped out, confused by the commotion, inadvertently blocking Emma and Tom's path. The elevator doors began to close. "30th floor," they heard Mia call out as the doors shut. "Call upstairs," Tom shouted to the security guard. "Tell them to stop a little girl when the elevator opens." The guard fumbled with his radio while Emma frantically pressed the call button for another elevator. Outside, the crowd watched in confusion as the drama unfolded both above and below them. "The girl from earlier just ran into the building," the news reporter informed her viewers. "Her parents appear to be in pursuit. We're not sure what's happening, but it seems she may be attempting to reach the dog somehow." Officer Rodriguez spoke urgently into his radio, calling for officers to secure the 30th floor, but the building was large with multiple elevator banks and stairwells. Finding one determined little girl wouldn't be easy. "She said something about a door behind a plant," the building manager remembered suddenly. "That's the west corridor. We need to focus our search there." Inside the elevator, Mia stood quietly, watching the numbers climb. Her heart was pounding, but not from fear. She felt Thunder's fear instead, his desperation, his pain. But she also felt his determination, his loyalty to the old man who had cared for him. "I'm coming," she whispered. "Hold on just a little longer." The elevator chimed as it reached the 30th floor. The doors opened to reveal an empty hallway decorated in corporate beige with landscape paintings spaced evenly along the walls. Mia stepped out, then closed her eyes for a moment, listening to something only she could hear. "This way," she murmured to herself, turning left. She padded quietly down the carpeted corridor, passing closed office doors. Most of the offices were empty due to the commotion outside. Those employees who remained were clustered at the windows on the opposite side of the building, watching the drama unfold. Mia reached the end of the hallway where it turned right. There, just as she had somehow known, stood a large potted ficus tree. Behind it, partially hidden, was a service door marked "Maintenance, Authorized Personnel Only." She tried the handle, locked, but Thunder had shown her something else. Mia knelt down and reached beneath the pot, her small fingers searching until they found a magnetic key case stuck to the bottom of the metal plant stand. She pulled it free and opened it to reveal a key card. Meanwhile, Emma and Tom had reached the 30th floor via another elevator bank. They sprinted through the hallways, calling Mia's name. "Has anyone seen a little girl?" Tom asked a group of office workers who had gathered by a window. "A little girl with brown hair? I think I saw her heading toward the west corridor," one woman replied, pointing. Emma and Tom raced in that direction, their faces pale with fear. Back at the maintenance door, Mia swiped the keycard through the reader. The light turned green, and the lock clicked. She pushed the door open to reveal a narrow utility corridor lined with pipes and electrical conduits. The air was cooler here, with a slight breeze suggesting an opening to the outside somewhere ahead. Mia stepped inside, letting the door swing shut behind her. The corridor was dimly lit by sporadic emergency lights. She walked forward purposefully, guided by Thunder's mental images. Left turn, right turn, through a narrow passage, down a short flight of metal stairs. The maintenance corridors were a maze, but Mia navigated them without hesitation. Finally, she reached another door, this one with a large warning sign. "Caution, window washing equipment access, fall hazard." Outside the building, the crowd had grown even larger. Police had established a perimeter, keeping people at a safe distance in case the platform, or, God forbid, the dog, fell. Air mattresses designed for high-fall rescues were being inflated, though everyone knew they might not be enough to save Thunder from such a height. "We've got movement inside the building," the reporter announced suddenly. "It appears someone is approaching the window nearest to the platform." All eyes turned to see a small figure appear at a window on the 30th floor, just a few feet from the dangling platform. Is that a child?" Chief Davis asked incredulously. Emma and Tom, who had just raced back outside after failing to find Mia, looked up in horror. "Oh my God, that's our daughter!" Emma screamed. The crowd gasped as the small window opened, and Mia's face became visible, She was looking not down at the crowd, but over at Thunder, who had turned his head toward her, his ears perking up despite his precarious position. "How did she get in there?" the building manager spluttered. "That section is supposed to be secure." "She knew about the maintenance door," Tom said, his voice hollow with fear. "And now she's going to try to save that dog." Chief Davis grabbed her radio. "All units, we have a child in danger on the 30th floor west side. I need every available firefighter to that location now." But everyone knew the firefighters wouldn't reach Mia in time. The platform gave another lurch, now hanging at a 45-degree angle. Thunder's paw was slipping. "Mia!" Emma screamed, her voice lost in the wind between the buildings. From her position at the window, Mia could now see Thunder clearly. The German Shepherd's intelligent eyes were fixed on her, filled with pain but also with a spark of hope. The platform he was hanging from was just beyond her reach, about 3 feet away and slightly below the window. Behind her, Mia heard pounding on the door she had come through. Adult voices called her name, but she knew they wouldn't reach her in time to save Thunder. "It's okay," she said softly to the dog. "I can hear you. I'm here to help." For a moment, it seemed as though the entire city held its breath, watching the impossible drama unfold 30 stories above the street. A tiny 5-year-old girl and a desperate German Shepherd, both in mortal danger, connected by something beyond ordinary understanding. Thunder's paw slipped another inch. Time was running out. The small maintenance room Mia had entered was cramped and dusty, filled with cleaning supplies and equipment for the window washing platforms. Through the narrow window, she could feel the cool rush of air from 30 stories up. Thunder's eyes never left hers, as if he understood she was his only hope. "I'm going to help you," Mia whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "I know you're scared." What happened next stunned the crowd below. Mia began talking to the dog, not in baby talk or the way people usually speak to animals, but in hushed, deliberate tones, as if having a conversation. More surprising was how Thunder responded. His frantic movements calmed slightly, his eyes locked on the little girl. "She's communicating with it somehow," the reporter said into her microphone, disbelief evident in her voice. "The dog seems to be responding to her." Emma clutched Tom's arm so tightly her knuckles turned white. "How is she doing that? Tom, she's going to fall." Chief Davis was coordinating with her team, trying to find the fastest route to reach Mia. "We need to get up there now. That window is not designed for emergency access." Mia leaned farther out of the window, studying the distance between her and Thunder. The platform had shifted again, making it impossible for her to reach the dog without leaving the relative safety of the maintenance room. "He belongs to Walter," Mia called down to no one in particular, her voice carried away by the wind. "He needs his heart medicine. That's why Thunder escaped, to find help." Walter Hayes looked up in astonishment from his wheelchair. "My heart medication? I left it at home when the ambulance came yesterday. How could she possibly know that?" Officer Rodriguez knelt beside the elderly man. "Sir, is that true about your medication?" Walter nodded, his eyes wide. "Yes, I have a prescription I need to take twice daily. The hospital has been giving me doses, but Thunder was there when I had my heart attack last year. He barked until neighbors came to help." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. How could a 5-year-old girl know such specific details? Inside the maintenance room, Mia was searching through the equipment. She found a coil of thin rope used for securing tools. With small, determined hands, she tied one end around the sturdy metal pipe that ran along the wall. "Please, baby, don't do anything dangerous," Emma shouted from below, though she knew her daughter couldn't hear her. "The firefighters are coming." But Mia seemed to be operating on a different wavelength, driven by something only she understood. She tied the other end of the rope around her waist, creating a makeshift safety line. The knots she made were surprisingly complex for a child her age. "Where did she learn to tie knots like that?" Tom asked, bewildered. Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know. I never taught her that." Through the window, Mia called to Thunder again. "I'm coming to help you. Don't be scared." The crowd below collectively held their breath as Mia carefully climbed onto the window ledge. The maintenance window was small, but just large enough for her tiny frame to slip through. With the rope secure around her waist, she began to edge out onto the narrow ledge that ran alongside the building. "No!" Emma screamed, burying her face in Tom's chest. He held her tightly, his own face a mask of terror. "God help her," Chief Davis whispered, her professional detachment momentarily cracking. Mia moved with unexpected grace, her small feet carefully finding purchase on the ledge. The wind whipped her hair around her face, but her expression remained focused, determined. She inched closer to the dangling platform, the rope trailing behind her. Inside the building, firefighters had finally reached the maintenance area door, only to find it locked from the inside. "Break it down!" came the order, and they began ramming the heavy door. "They won't reach her in time," the building manager said, his face ashen. On the ledge, Mia had reached the point closest to Thunder. Still, at least 2 feet of open air separated them. The platform groaned, the last cable fraying visibly. "Jump to me," Mia called to Thunder. "I know you can do it." The crowd gasped. Was she expecting the dog to jump to the ledge? Thunder whimpered, his back legs scrabbling uselessly against the tilted platform. "Your person needs you," Mia said, her voice somehow carrying clearly despite the height and wind. "Walter needs you to be brave." At the sound of his owner's name, Thunder's ears perked up again. His intelligent eyes seemed to assess the distance, calculating. "She's trying to get the dog to jump to her," the reporter explained to her viewers. "But the gap seems too wide, and if either of them falls from this height—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what would happen. Walter Hayes struggled to his feet from his wheelchair, ignoring the protests of his hospital attendant. "Thunder!" he called upward, with all the strength his weakened body could muster. "Good boy! You can do it!" Whether Thunder heard his master's voice or was responding to some unspoken communication from Mia, the German shepherd suddenly tensed, gathering what little strength remained in his exhausted muscles. In a moment that would later be replayed on news channels across the country, Thunder pushed off from the falling platform with his back legs and leaped toward the ledge. The platform broke free completely the instant he left it, plummeting toward the ground like a deadly missile. People scattered, running for safety as the metal structure crashed into the cordoned-off area. But all eyes were on Thunder, whose powerful leap had carried him just far enough to catch the edge of the ledge with his front paws. His back legs dangled over 30 stories of empty air, scrabbling desperately for purchase. Mia reached out, grabbing the scruff of his neck with both hands. "I've got you!" she cried, but the weight of the large dog was pulling her toward the edge as well. The safety rope went taut, the only thing keeping both of them from falling, but Mia was small, and Thunder was heavy. Her fingers began to slip from his fur. At that moment, the maintenance room door finally gave way. A firefighter burst through, taking in the situation with a trained eye. "Hold on, kid," he shouted, diving for the rope and grabbing it just as Mia's grip on Thunder failed. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Thunder began to fall, his eyes still locked with Mia's in a moment of shared understanding. But instead of screaming, Mia calmly said 3 words. "People will help." As Thunder fell, something extraordinary happened below. The crowd, which had scattered to avoid the falling platform, surged back together with a unified purpose. People grabbed whatever they could, jackets, tablecloths from a nearby cafe, canvas bags, and formed a makeshift safety net, holding it taut between them. "Everyone together!" Officer Rodriguez shouted, organizing the effort. "Spread out! Make it tight!" Thunder fell 30 stories, his dark shape growing larger against the blue sky. The improvised net strained as his weight hit it, but, remarkably, it held. People stumbled, but kept their grips, absorbing the impact collectively. A cheer erupted as Thunder was gently lowered to the ground, stunned but alive. Veterinarians who had arrived on the scene rushed forward to check him for injuries. "He's alive!" the reporter exclaimed into her microphone. "The dog has survived the fall thanks to the quick thinking of these brave citizens." Walter Hayes collapsed back into his wheelchair, overcome with emotion. "Thank God," he sobbed. "Thank God." But the drama wasn't over. All eyes turned back up to the 30th floor, where the firefighter was carefully pulling Mia back into the building. Minutes later, a collective sigh of relief swept through the crowd as Mia appeared at the building's main entrance, carried in the arms of the firefighter. Emma and Tom rushed forward, enveloping their daughter in a desperate embrace. "What were you thinking?" Emma sobbed, alternating between kissing her daughter's face and checking her for injuries. "You could have been killed." "I had to help Thunder," Mia said simply. "He showed me how." The firefighter who had saved her shook his head in amazement. "In 20 years on the job, I've never seen anything like it. That little girl has nerves of steel." The crowd was still buzzing about the remarkable rescue when something else caught their attention. The The veterinarian examining Thunder looked up with a puzzled expression. "This is strange," she said. "Besides some mild dehydration and a strained paw, this dog is perfectly fine. No injuries consistent with the fall." "The net must have worked better than we thought," someone suggested. "No," the vet replied, shaking her head. "Even with the net, there should be signs of trauma. It's as if he floated down." Mia, still wrapped in her parents' arms, smiled mysteriously. Walter Hayes was wheeled over to be reunited with his dog. Thunder immediately perked up, straining toward his owner despite his injuries. The old man leaned down from his wheelchair, burying his face in Thunder's fur. "Thank you," he said through tears, looking up at Mia. "But how did you know about my medication? How did you know his original name?" Mia shrugged. "Thunder told me. He showed me pictures in my head." The adults exchanged glances, unsure how to process this statement, but Walter nodded as if it made perfect sense. "My late wife always said animals speak to those pure enough to listen," he said softly. "She claimed she could understand them too, though I always thought it was just her gentle heart." The next day, Mia's story was on the front page of every newspaper and the top of every news broadcast. "Miracle on 30th floor, 5-year-old girl's incredible rescue," read the headlines. Emma and Tom found themselves fielding countless interview requests as people clamored to hear more about their extraordinary daughter. Scientists wanted to study her, skeptics wanted to debunk her, and believers wanted to celebrate her. But for Mia, life continued as normal. The only difference was that people now brought their pets to the Parkers' apartment building, hoping she might talk to them too. A week after the rescue, Emma sat Mia down for a serious conversation. "Honey, I need to ask you something important, and I want you to tell me the truth." Mia looked up from the drawing she was working on, a surprisingly detailed sketch of Thunder and Walter reunited. "How long have you been able to communicate with animals?" Mia considered the question with a seriousness that seemed beyond her years. "I don't know, Mommy. I think always. Grandma said it was a special gift, and that I should be careful who I tell." Emma felt a chill run up her spine. Her mother had passed away when Mia was just 2 years old. They had never had such a conversation, at least not that Emma knew of. "And what else did Grandma tell you?" "That some people wouldn't understand, that they might be scared of things they can't explain." Mia returned to her drawing, adding careful details to Thunder's fur. She said the animals would tell me who needed help. Tom, who had been listening from the doorway, joined them. "Mia, what exactly do you hear from the animals? Is it like talking?" Mia shook her head. "Not words like we use, more like feelings, pictures, sometimes memories." She looked up at her father with earnest eyes. "Like when Thunder showed me about Walter's heart stopping, and how he barked until the neighbors came, or how he remembered the secret maintenance door from watching the cleaning people use it." Emma and Tom exchanged glances. The incident had raised so many questions they weren't sure they wanted answers to. "Am I in trouble?" Mia asked, noting their serious expressions. "No, sweetheart," Emma said quickly. "What you did was very brave. Dangerous, but brave. We're just trying to understand." "The thing is, Mia," Tom added gently, "most people can't do what you can do. It makes you very special." Mia nodded solemnly. "I know. Thunder told me there aren't many people who can hear them. That's why he was so scared when he saw me. He didn't think anyone would understand what he was trying to do." Later that evening, after Mia had gone to bed, Emma and Tom sat in their living room, trying to process everything that had happened. "My mother used to say she could sense when our old cat was sick before any symptoms showed," Emma said quietly. "I always thought she was just being overly attached to the pet." "Do you think this is genetic?" Tom asked, struggling with the concept. Emma shrugged helplessly. "I don't know what to think anymore, but you saw what happened out there. Mia knew things she couldn't possibly have known." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Tom opened it to find Walter Hayes standing there, looking much improved from the last time they had seen him. Thunder sat obediently at his side, his injured paw bandaged but otherwise appearing healthy and alert. "I'm sorry to disturb you," Walter said, "but Thunder insisted on coming here. He's been restless all day, pulling toward your building whenever we go out." As if on cue, Thunder's ears perked up, and his gaze fixed on something behind Tom. Mia, who should have been asleep, stood in the hallway in her pajamas. "He came to say thank you," she said, rubbing her eyes sleepily. And goodbye. Emma joined them at the door. Goodbye? Are you going somewhere, Mr. Hayes? Walter nodded. My daughter has convinced me to move to her place in the countryside. After what happened, I think we could both use the fresh air and open spaces. He looked down fondly at Thunder. Fewer skyscrapers, too. Thunder padded forward, gently nudging Mia's hand with his nose. She knelt and wrapped her arms around his neck, whispering something in his ear that no one else could hear. The dog licked her cheek once, then returned to Walter's side. What did you say to him? Walter asked curiously. I told him to take good care of you, Mia replied, and that I'll listen if he ever needs to talk again. Walter's eyes glistened with tears. Your daughter has a remarkable gift, he told Emma and Tom. In my culture, we believe such children are blessed by spirits. They walk between worlds. After Walter and Thunder left, Emma tucked Mia back into bed. What was it like? She asked softly. Being out there on that ledge, so high up. Mia yawned. I wasn't scared, Mommy. Thunder was with me. He told me I was brave. You were very brave, Emma agreed, smoothing her daughter's hair. But please don't ever do something like that again without telling us. I promise, Mia mumbled, already drifting back to sleep. Unless another animal really needs help. Emma kissed her forehead, unsure whether to be proud or terrified of the extraordinary child she had raised. As she turned off the light, she noticed something on Mia's nightstand. A small, carved wooden figure of a dog that hadn't been there before. Where did this come from? She whispered. Mr. Walter gave it to me, Mia said drowsily. It was his wife's. She could hear the animals, too. As Emma closed the bedroom door, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey for her daughter. The world looked different now, filled with whispers and connections, invisible to most people, but crystal clear to one special little girl. Did you ever meet someone with an unusual gift? Tell us about your experience in the comments. 3 months after the dramatic rescue, life for the Parker family had changed in subtle but significant ways. Mia's story had gone viral, bringing a wave of attention the family hadn't anticipated. News vans had eventually stopped camping outside their apartment building, and the flood of interview requests had slowed to a trickle, but people still recognized Mia on the street, pointing and whispering. There's the animal whisperer girl, they'd say, or that's the skyscraper hero. Emma had returned to her nursing job at the hospital, but her co-workers treated her differently now, asking questions about Mia that Emma didn't know how to answer. Tom found himself fielding curious inquiries from fellow construction workers who had seen the rescue on the news. For Mia, the biggest change was how openly she now embraced her special ability. Before the incident with Thunder, she had kept most of her animal communications to herself, instinctively understanding that others might find it strange. Now, with her parents' cautious encouragement, she spoke more freely about what the animals told her. On a crisp Saturday morning, Emma was preparing breakfast when she noticed Mia standing by the apartment window, staring intently at something outside. What are you looking at, sweetie? Emma asked, a slight edge of worry in her voice. Since the skyscraper incident, anytime Mia gazed out a window for too long, Emma's heart rate increased. The birds are talking about a storm coming, Mia said matter-of-factly. They're gathering extra food. Emma glanced at the clear blue sky. The weather forecast didn't mention anything about a storm. Mia shrugged, turning away from the window. The birds know. They always know first. Tom entered the kitchen, catching the tail end of the conversation. What do the birds know? Apparently there's a storm coming, Emma replied, exchanging a look with her husband. They had agreed to support Mia's gift, but sometimes it was hard to know how seriously to take her animal-inspired predictions. Well, I'll throw an umbrella in the car just in case, Tom said, tousling Mia's hair affectionately. We should get going soon if we want to make it to the new apartment on time. The Parkers had decided to move. The attention from the media and curious strangers had become too intrusive, and they wanted a fresh start somewhere with more space and privacy. Today they were viewing a potential new home in a quieter neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. As they drove, Mia sat quietly in her car seat, watching the urban landscape gradually give way to more residential streets with trees and small yards. She seemed to be tracking something with her eyes that her parents couldn't see. Birds, perhaps, or the occasional dog being walked on the sidewalk. You okay back there, princess? Tom asked, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. Mia nodded. The animals are different here, not as loud or scared. Emma turned in her seat to look at her daughter. What do you mean by loud? In our apartment, the animals are always shouting, Mia explained. Too many people, too much noise, not enough trees. Here, they're calmer. Tom pulled the car up to a modest two-story house with a small but well-kept front yard. This is it, he announced. What do you think? Mia pressed her face against the window, taking in the property. A smile spread across her face. There's a rabbit family living under that bush, she said, pointing. They say no cats live in this house. That's good. The real estate agent, Ms. Rivera, was waiting for them on the front porch. She greeted them warmly, having been briefed by Emma beforehand about Mia's unique sensitivity. Hello, Mia, she said, kneeling slightly to meet the child at eye level. I've heard a lot about you. Would you like to explore the backyard while I show your parents the inside of the house? Mia looked to her mother for permission, and when Emma nodded, she skipped happily toward the gate that led to the backyard. Just stay where we can see you, Emma called after her. As Ms. Rivera led them through the house, explaining its features and history, Emma kept glancing out the windows to check on Mia. Her daughter was wandering around the modestly sized yard, occasionally stopping to examine something in the grass or look up at the trees. The previous owners were an elderly couple, Ms. Rivera was saying. They kept the place in great condition, but decided to downsize after their children moved out of state. It seems perfect for us, Tom said, admiring the solid construction. Plenty of space, but not too much to maintain. A sudden clap of thunder interrupted their conversation. They all turned toward the windows in surprise. That's strange, Ms. Rivera said, frowning at the darkening sky. The forecast was clear all day. Emma and Tom exchanged a look, remembering Mia's earlier comment about the birds predicting a storm. We should get Mia inside, Emma said. But when they looked out at the backyard, Mia was nowhere to be seen. Mia, Tom called, sliding open the back door and stepping onto the patio. Mia, where are you? The backyard was empty. A swing set in the corner swayed slightly in the increasing wind. Rain began to fall, light at first, but quickly becoming heavier. She must have gone around the side of the house, Emma suggested, trying to keep the panic from her voice. Mia, she shouted. They split up, with Tom checking one side of the house and Emma the other. Ms. Rivera stayed by the back door in case Mia returned. Emma rounded the corner of the house, her shoes already soaked from the sudden downpour. Mia, she called again. A neighbor working in his garage looked up. Are you looking for a little girl? He asked. Emma nodded frantically. My daughter. She was just in the backyard. The man pointed down the street. I saw a kid heading that way a few minutes ago. Seemed in a hurry. Thank you, Emma said, already running in the direction he had indicated. Tom, she shouted. This way. Tom joined her, and together they jogged down the tree-lined street, calling Mia's name. The rain was coming down in sheets now, reducing visibility and soaking them to the skin. There, Tom suddenly pointed. About half a block ahead, a small figure in a yellow raincoat, which Emma belatedly realized Mia hadn't been wearing when they arrived, was walking purposefully toward what appeared to be a park or wooded area at the end of the street. Mia! Emma shouted over the sound of the rain. Mia, stop! Either Mia didn't hear, or she chose to ignore them. She continued forward, disappearing into the trees, just as Emma and Tom reached the park entrance. The area was wilder than it had appeared from a distance, less of a manicured park, and more of a small forest preserve with trails winding through dense trees. Mia was no longer visible. Which way did she go? Tom panted, trying to catch his breath. The rain was still coming down hard, making it difficult to see the muddy paths clearly. Emma was about to suggest they split up again when they heard a faint sound. Not Mia's voice, but the distinctive bark of a dog, coming from somewhere deeper in the woods. That way, Emma said, pointing toward the sound. They followed the path as it curved between tall oaks and maples, their leaves providing minimal shelter from the rain. The barking grew louder, more insistent. Finally, they rounded a bend and saw Mia kneeling on the ground next to a large oak tree. She was leaning over, reaching into what appeared to be a hollow at the base of the trunk. The yellow raincoat she wore was several sizes too big, clearly not hers. Mia! Emma called, relief washing over her. Mia looked up, her face breaking into a smile when she saw her parents. I found them, Mommy, she called back, just like the big dog said I would. Tom and Emma exchanged confused glances as they approached their daughter. What big dog? Tom asked. Mia, why did you run off like that? You scared us half to death. Mia pointed to her oversized raincoat. The man with the sad eyes gave me his coat. He was looking for his dog, but he couldn't find her. She just had babies and got scared in the storm. Emma knelt beside her daughter, pushing back the hood of the raincoat to look at her properly. What man, sweetheart? Did you talk to a stranger? The thought sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the rain. He was nice, Mia insisted. He was worried about Daisy. That's her. She pointed into the hollow of the tree. Emma and Tom peered in to see a bedraggled-looking border collie huddled protectively around a litter of tiny puppies, no more than a few days old. She ran away when the storm started, Mia explained. Dogs get scared of thunder sometimes, even mama dogs. She found this tree to keep her babies dry. The border collie whimpered softly, but didn't growl or show any signs of aggression toward them. If anything, she seemed relieved to have been found. Mia, you can't just run off like that, Emma said, though her tone had softened at the sight of the dog and her puppies. You have to tell us where you're going. There wasn't time, Mia said simply. The man was crying. He thought Daisy and her babies might die in the storm. Tom looked around uneasily. Where is this man now? As if in answer to his question, they heard someone calling from further down the path. Daisy, where are you, girl? A moment later, a man in his 40s appeared around the bend. He was soaking wet, with no jacket or raincoat, his thinning hair plastered to his scalp. His eyes widened when he saw the group gathered around the tree. You found her, he exclaimed, rushing forward. Oh, thank God. The border collie's tail began to wag as her owner approached. He dropped to his knees beside the tree hollow, tears mingling with the rain on his face. She's been missing since last night, the man explained, gently stroking Daisy's head. She was close to having her pups, and then the storm hit earlier than expected. I've been searching for hours. He looked at Mia with a mixture of confusion and gratitude. How did you know where to find her? Mia gave him the same matter-of-fact look she'd given countless adults who asked similar questions. Daisy told me. She was worried about her babies getting wet. The man stared at her for a moment, then looked down at the yellow raincoat she wore. Recognition dawned on his face. You're the little girl from the skyscraper, the one who saved that German shepherd. He turned to Emma and Tom. I gave her my coat when I saw her walking in the rain. I didn't realize she was alone. She said she was looking for my dog, that she could find her. He shook his head in amazement. I thought she was just being kind, but then she walked straight here, like she knew exactly where to go. She does that, Tom said with a sigh, helping Mia to her feet. We're sorry if she bothered you. Bothered me? The man laughed incredulously. She just saved my dog and her puppies. I'm Jake Harrison, by the way. I live in the blue house at the corner. Tom Parker, Tom replied, shaking Jake's hand. This is my wife Emma and our daughter Mia, though it seems you've already met. Jake nodded, still looking at Mia with wonder. We need to get Daisy and her puppies somewhere warm and dry. My place is closest, if you don't mind helping. Together, they carefully lifted the border collie and her puppies, using Tom's jacket as a makeshift carrier. The small procession made its way back through the woods, the storm beginning to abate as suddenly as it had arrived. Jake's house was cozy and cluttered, with dog toys scattered across the living room and framed photos of Daisy adorning the walls. He led them to a laundry room where a large dog bed was prepared with soft blankets. I set this up for her before she went missing, he explained, as they gently placed Daisy and her puppies on the bed. I knew she'd be having the pups soon, but she got spooked by the pre-storm pressure and bolted while I was at work. While Jake dried Daisy with a towel and checked the puppies for any signs of distress, Emma took the opportunity to have a stern conversation with Mia in the hallway. You can't just wander off like that, she said, keeping her voice low but firm. I understand you wanted to help, but you scared us, Mia. Anything could have happened to you. Mia looked down at her shoes. I'm sorry, Mommy, but the puppies needed help, and Jake was so sad. How did you even know about Daisy? Tom asked. Did you hear her from the house we were visiting? Mia shook her head. No, the rabbits told me about a lost dog with babies. They said the man with the sad eyes had been looking for her all night. Then I saw Jake when I went to look, and he needed help. Emma and Tom exchanged helpless glances. How could they explain the concept of stranger danger to a child who seemed to have an uncanny ability to sense who needed help? Jake appeared in the doorway, his face transformed with relief and joy. The vet's on her way, but she thinks they'll all be fine based on my description. 5 healthy puppies. He knelt down to Mia's level. I don't know how you knew where to find her, but you saved their lives today. Thank you. Mia smiled. Daisy says thank you too. She was afraid you'd be mad at her for running away. Jake's eyes widened slightly, but he recovered quickly. I could never be mad at her. I was just worried. He stood and addressed Emma and Tom. Please, let me make you all some hot chocolate or coffee. It's the least I can do after you got soaked helping me. While Jake busied himself in the kitchen, Tom pulled Emma aside. So much for a quiet, normal house viewing, he whispered. Emma sighed. At least the real estate agent got to see what she's dealing with right away. She glanced at Mia, who was peeking into the laundry room to check on Daisy. Do you think we'll ever have a normal day again? Probably not, Tom replied, but there was a note of pride in his voice. Our daughter is extraordinary. We just have to figure out how to keep her safe while she's busy saving the world one animal at a time. The vet arrived shortly after, confirming that Daisy and her puppies were indeed healthy, despite their adventure. As she examined them, she chatted with Jake about proper care for newborn puppies. You'll need to monitor them closely for the first few weeks, she advised. Make sure Daisy is eating enough to maintain her milk production, and watch for any signs of distress in the puppies. Jake nodded seriously, taking mental notes. As the vet packed up her equipment, he glanced at the Parkers, who were preparing to leave now that the crisis was resolved. Wait, he said suddenly, you were looking at the Morgan place down the street, weren't you? The house for sale? Emma nodded. Yes, we were in the middle of a viewing when Mia disappeared. Jake seemed to consider something for a moment, then said, It's a great neighborhood, lots of families with kids, good schools, and... He hesitated. People here tend to mind their own business. They're friendly, but not nosy. Tom understood what Jake was implying. That would be a nice change. We've had some challenges with privacy since Mia's story went public. I can imagine, Jake said, looking at Mia with newfound respect. Well, if you do decide to move here, you'd have at least one neighbor who understands your situation. He smiled. And I have a feeling Daisy would love to see more of her rescuer. After saying their goodbyes and promising to let Jake know their decision about the house, the Parkers headed back to the car. Ms. Rivera was still waiting, having taken shelter in her own vehicle during the worst of the storm. I'm so sorry about all this, Emma began, but the real estate agent waved her apology away. Are you kidding? This is the most exciting house showing I've ever had. She smiled at Mia. Your mom told me you were special, but I had no idea. As they drove home, the skies clearing as suddenly as they had darkened, Emma reflected on the day's events. Part of her was still frightened by how easily Mia had wandered off, how confidently she had followed her instincts without considering the dangers. But another part couldn't help but feel amazed at what her daughter had accomplished, finding a missing dog and her newborn puppies in the middle of a storm, guided by nothing more than her mysterious connection to animals. I think we should take the house, Tom said suddenly, breaking the silence. It felt right, didn't it? And that neighbor, Jake, he seemed like he really understood. Emma turned to look at Mia, who had dozed off in her car seat, exhausted from the day's excitement. What do you think, Mia? She asked softly, not expecting an answer from her sleeping child. Would you like to live there? To her surprise, Mia's eyes fluttered open. The rabbit said it's a good place, she mumbled sleepily. And now Daisy and her babies say so too. Emma met Tom's eyes, a small smile tugging at her lips. Well, if the rabbits and Daisy approve, who are we to argue? 2 weeks later, the Parkers moved into their new home. The process of packing up their apartment had been bittersweet. They were leaving behind the only home Mia had ever known, but looking forward to a fresh start away from the constant scrutiny. As they carried boxes from the moving truck to the house, Jake appeared with a basket of muffins and a thermos of coffee. Welcome to the neighborhood, he said cheerfully. Need an extra pair of hands? Tom gratefully accepted both the refreshments and the offer of help. As Jake picked up a box labeled kitchen, he lowered his voice. By the way, I haven't told anyone about Mia's special talent. Figure that's your story to share if and when you want to. Thanks, Tom said, genuinely touched by the man's discretion. We appreciate that. Emma, who was organizing boxes in the living room, watched through the window as Mia explored the backyard. Her daughter moved with purpose, stopping at specific spots as if greeting invisible residents. The rabbit family under the bush, probably, or perhaps other creatures Emma couldn't see or hear. For a moment, Emma was struck by how ordinary the scene appeared. Just a little girl playing in her new backyard. And yet how extraordinary it actually was. Mia was communing with a world that existed alongside their own, but remained inaccessible to most people. Emma thought back to what Walter Hayes had said months ago. In my culture, we believe such children are blessed by spirits. They walk between worlds. At the time, she had filed the comment away as a nice sentiment. Now, watching Mia kneel to examine something in the grass, her small hand extended as if in greeting, Emma wondered if the old man had been right after all. Her daughter walked between worlds, hearing voices others couldn't hear, seeing connections others couldn't see. It was a gift, but it was also a responsibility, one that Emma and Tom were still learning how to navigate as parents. "Hey," Tom said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" Emma leaned back against him, her eyes still on Mia. "Just that our life is never going to be normal again, is it?" Tom chuckled softly. "Probably not, but normal is overrated anyway." As they watched, a butterfly landed on Mia's outstretched finger. She held perfectly still, her face a picture of delight as the delicate creature opened and closed its wings. "No," Emma agreed, smiling despite her concerns. "Normal is definitely overrated. Have you ever moved to a new place because of something unexpected? What happened that made you change your life?" 6 months had passed since the Parkers moved into their new home. The neighborhood had proven to be everything they'd hoped for, friendly but respectful of their privacy. The viral story of the girl who rescued the German Shepherd had gradually faded from public memory, allowing the family to establish a more normal routine. Mia had started kindergarten at the local elementary school, where she was making friends and adjusting well, despite occasional incidents involving the class hamster telling her things, or her uncanny ability to calm agitated pets during the school's animal education days. Her teacher, Ms. Winters, had been understanding after a brief, discreet conversation with Emma about Mia's unique sensitivity. It was a crisp autumn Saturday when the phone call came that would once again challenge the Parkers' attempt at a normal life. Emma was raking leaves in the front yard while Tom and Mia built a birdhouse in the garage when her cell phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but answered anyway. "Hello, Mrs. Parker. This is Dr. Linda Chen from City General Hospital." The woman's voice was professional but warm. "I'm calling regarding a patient of mine, Walter Hayes." Emma's rake paused mid-stroke. Walter Hayes, the owner of Thunder, the German Shepherd that Mia had helped rescue nearly a year ago. They hadn't heard from him since he had moved to his daughter's place in the countryside. "Is everything all right?" Emma asked, a note of concern in her voice. There was a slight hesitation on the other end. "Mr. Hayes has been admitted with complications from his heart condition. His prognosis is—" Dr. Chen paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "It's not looking good, I'm afraid. He's been asking for Mia." Emma glanced toward the garage where her daughter's laughter mingled with Tom's deeper voice. "I see," she said softly. "How did you find us? We've moved since—" "Mr. Hayes' daughter tracked you down through the news stories," Dr. Chen explained. "I know this is an unusual request, but he's quite insistent. He says Mia would want to see Thunder one last time." Emma's heart sank. The implication was clear. Walter Hayes was preparing for the end, trying to set his affairs in order. "Of course," she said. "We can come tomorrow morning if that works." "That would be perfect," Dr. Chen replied, the relief evident in her voice. "And Mrs. Parker? He mentioned something about Mia having a special way with animals. I didn't quite understand what he meant, but he seemed to think it was important." "Yes," Emma said simply. "She does." After ending the call, Emma stood motionless in the yard, the rake loose in her grip. How would she explain this to Mia? Her daughter understood more about death than most children her age, an inevitable consequence of her connection to animals, who lived shorter lives and spoke frankly about such matters. But this would be different. This was someone she knew, someone she had helped. Tom noticed her expression when she finally entered the garage. He set down his hammer and whispered, "Everything okay?" Emma shook her head slightly and mouthed, "Later." That evening, after Mia had gone to bed, Emma explained the situation to Tom in hushed tones at the kitchen table. "Do you think we should take her?" Tom asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "It could be pretty distressing." Emma cupped her mug of tea between her palms. "I think we have to. Walter specifically asked for her, and I don't know, Tom. When has Mia ever shied away from helping someone who needed her, whether human or animal?" Tom nodded slowly. "You're right, and Thunder will be there. She'd never forgive us if we kept her from saying goodbye." The next morning, they explained to Mia where they were going. To their surprise, she didn't seem shocked or upset by the news. "I know," she said, pulling on her favorite sweater. "Thunder told me last night in my dream. He said his person is very tired and needs to go to sleep soon, but he's worried about what will happen to Thunder." Emma and Tom exchanged glances. After all this time, Mia's matter-of-fact statements about her animal communications still caught them off guard. "And how do you feel about that, sweetheart?" Emma asked gently. Mia considered the question as she tied her shoes. "Sad, but Thunder says it's like when the leaves fall off the trees. They have to fall so new ones can grow in spring. Mr. Walter is like an old leaf." On the drive to the hospital, Mia sat quietly in the back seat, watching the autumn landscape blur past the window. Occasionally, she would point out animals that caught her attention: a red-tailed hawk circling above a field, a fox slipping into the underbrush, a herd of deer grazing in a distant meadow. At the hospital, Dr. Chen met them in the lobby. She was younger than Emma had expected, with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor. "Thank you for coming," she said, shaking their hands. She knelt to Mia's level. "And you must be the famous Mia. Mr. Hayes has told me all about how brave you were." Mia nodded solemnly. "Is Thunder here?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Yes, he's in the garden with Mr. Hayes' daughter, Patricia. It's a special arrangement. We don't usually allow pets, but given the circumstances..." She stood and addressed Emma and Tom. "I should prepare you. Mr. Hayes has declined rapidly in the past 24 hours. He's on comfort measures only now." "We understand," Tom said, taking Emma's hand and squeezing it gently. Dr. Chen led them through the hospital corridors to a small garden courtyard, enclosed by the building on all sides. Benches and planters created a peaceful oasis in the midst of the clinical environment. Seated on one of the benches was a middle-aged woman with Walter's same gentle eyes. Beside her, Thunder lay at attention, his gaze fixed on the hospital doors as if waiting for someone. The moment Mia stepped into the garden, Thunder's ears perked up. He rose to his feet, his tail wagging hesitantly. "Thunder!" Mia called, breaking free from her parents to run to the German Shepherd. Thunder met her halfway, his entire body wiggling with excitement. He licked her face as she threw her arms around his neck in a tight embrace. Patricia Hayes watched with a mixture of amazement and emotion. "He's been so listless these past few days," she said as Emma and Tom approached. "This is the most animated I've seen him." Emma introduced herself and Tom. "We're so sorry about your father." Patricia nodded, brushing away a tear. "Thank you for coming. It meant so much to him to see your daughter again. He's been talking about her non-stop since his condition worsened, about how she saved Thunder, how she knew things she couldn't possibly know." She hesitated. "I thought it was the medication making him confused, but seeing Thunder's reaction to her just now..." They watched as Mia knelt beside Thunder, her small hands gently stroking his fur, while she whispered in his ear. The dog listened with unusual intensity, occasionally nudging her with his nose or licking her cheek. "She's telling him that it's okay to be sad," a fragile voice said from behind them. They turned to see Walter Hayes being wheeled into the garden by a nurse. He was much thinner than when they'd last seen him, his skin pallid and his breathing labored, but his eyes lit up at the sight of Mia and Thunder together. "Dad, you should be resting," Patricia said, hurrying to his side. "I'll rest soon enough," Walter replied with a weak smile, "but first, I need to speak with Mia." At the sound of his voice, both Thunder and Mia looked up. The German Shepherd immediately went to his master, resting his head on Walter's knee. Mia followed, standing respectfully beside the wheelchair. "Hello, Mr. Walter," she said. "Thunder says you've been very brave." Walter's eyes filled with tears, not as brave